Hello, and welcome back to the Guns on Pegs podcast. My name's George Brown, and I'm the editor at Guns on Pegs. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Horn, managing director of Guns on Pegs. Chris, I've been out on my first ever simulated game day this week, and I've got a day's fishing lined up for the bank holiday. Do you think my shoulder's going to recover in time?
Oh, I can't believe that's your first simulated day. I can't believe that, especially like given what we do. How did you find it?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't do a lot of days where you pull the trigger a lot. Most of my shooting's on the farm. 50 birds is a big bag for us. So to be firing, 2-3 boxes of cartridges in the space of 10 minutes is practically unheard of for me. And I confess that after the first drive, as it were, I was almost physically shaking. I got a bit, the red mist came down a bit.
It is knackering. I must say, I had a day out on the clays on a simulated day with Hugh from Barbary Shooting School over in Wiltshire. It was awesome. And having not shot a simulated day, I didn't shoot one last year. Obviously, it was like height of pandemic. And God, it was great to be out. It was just so much fun. It was much more fun than I'd remembered. And he was telling me that they're doing loads more days. It seems to be really on the up. So exciting.
Yeah, and I've got another one lined up for next month, so that's nice.
Hello. And we're doing a bit of a team one, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. So I've got 2 next month.
I tell you what, we need to, if we bring our guest into this, we can ask him some questions about some simulator shooting as well. So,
well, why don't you introduce him then?
Fair enough. So our guest today has been labelled the best shoot host in the country by one of the best shots. He's also been labelled a particularly average shot by one of the country's most average shots. That's me. He's laid more eggs than every songbird in my garden ever. And to be precise, he's responsible for hatching 7 million chicks a year. He hosts days at the incredibly famous Brigands shoot, amongst many others in the Bettis Hall portfolio. It's RC, Tricky Dicky, Crofty, Richard Crofts to some. Welcome.
Thank you very much, guys. That's a hell of an introduction. I will just pick you up. You're right about being the average shot. That is 100% right. The best host in the country, that's debatable, and that'll be backed up by a few people, I'm sure. But thank you very much.
We'll come back to it in a minute. So that was Gerwin who said that in season 2 of this podcast, and we were talking about. He mentioned you along with Caleb, who I know is a good friend of yours as well. So
absolutely, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's great to have you with us, Richard. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Should we crack on, Richard? What's that you're drinking?
So I'm drinking a glass of Bollinger Le Grande Année 2007.
Wow.
Which is by far my favourite champagne. It's also very special because a guest that comes to the Brigands every season brings me a Magnum bottle to say thank you for whatever reason. It's an amazing drink. It reminds me of the shooting season, and I have cracked the Magnum for this meeting. Now I'm not going to drink it all, but
wow.
yeah. Why not? Why not?
That's amazing.
I've always thought about setting the pretentious bar quite high with my drinks, but shied away from it. But you've just gone and smashed it right down.
Yeah, and the Magnum, it was all I had as well. So when we were popping the cork, anyway, it's open. It's open.
Richard, I just have to, before we go on to our drinks, back in series 2, I think it was, we were recording on my birthday. So I bought a bottle of champagne. And back then, I was doing these recordings in my bedroom because the twins weren't at nursery. And I opened the bottle, and it basically exploded. The champagne hit the ceiling. The entire bed was drenched. It went all over my shorts, all over the bed, the carpet, everything. It was an absolute catastrophe. So you're very brave because we don't have a good track record of champagne on this podcast.
Well, luckily, we opened it before. We're all good. The glass is full, and we're ready to go.
I can't believe this. This would have been the perfect one to start our face-to-face podcast from. We should have, if we'd known George, I think we would have been in the car traipsing over, wouldn't we?
Well, it would have been a long drive, but I think it probably would have been worthwhile.
I'd have let you know about 20 minutes before and seen the helicopters arrive, if you really want to do that much. No, good.
George, what are you drinking?
Well, after my little foray back onto the beers last week, I'm back true to form, and I've got another glass of whiskey. I need to look at the bottle to pronounce it. It's Tamna Vullin Speyside Single Malt, American oak barrels with sherry cask finish. I confess that I opened it at the weekend, so I haven't got a full bottle for today, but it's very nice indeed and slipping down quite easily already. It's delightful. I've one of the reasons I'm back on Speyside is because I've just had my fishing trip confirmed, absolutely nailed on for July, so I'm very happy about that.
Lovely.
Happy days.
I'm sticking to beers as ever, and I've gone with a very well-known one to the shooting world. It's a classic, and I haven't had it on any of our episodes yet, so I thought I'd go there. And being a friend of Serena Williams, or Serena Cross as she now is, the old hooky, it's a staple, isn't it? Can't really go wrong with it.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone that doesn't like it?
No, it's a great beer.
Did Frank have hooky on one of the early podcasts? I think he may have done.
I think Tom Payne had it on the
That's right.
on the Pigeon Shot episode.
Right. Yeah.
But he had more than just an old hooky. He was motoring through. I think he ended up grabbing an old sort of cardboard box of Carlsberg tins as well at the end of it.
Great, right. So now that we've all got something to keep us refreshed, I think it's time we did Whose Bird Is It Anyway? Richard, just so you know, this is where we ask our listeners to write in with their shooting confessions and queries and quandaries, and we try to resolve their dilemmas for them. So we're back on confessions with this one after last week. So I'm back on making up silly names to keep the correspondence anonymous. And so this one comes from somebody I've chosen to call Wilfred. And in a way, it kind of relates back to the conversation we were having about sim, or at least clay shooting, right at the top of the show. And it goes like this. Gentlemen, I'm a premium member and a big fan of your podcasts, which are a regular source of entertainment on my travels. This is a story of a dilemma which has troubled me for a while and begs the question to tell or not to tell. I've been a member of the same small syndicate for almost 4 decades, and every summer we organise an informal clay shoot to which we invite the members, the previous year's guests, and their friends and family. Occasionally these past guests are not always welcome, but tradition is tradition. This story concerns one such regular unwelcome guest. This man is a greedy shot, a huge bragger, and generally a loud-mouthed idiot, who usually won the pool pot every summer and continued to brag about it throughout the following season. I needed to bring him down a peg or two. The plan was to embarrass him and to avoid him winning the pot. Unbeknown to my fellow syndicate guns, I had some dummy clay pigeons made up in marine plywood, which were then painted black. Our old Stuart clay traps were perfectly capable of throwing them skywards in a most realistic way, especially straight up. We all shared the trapping duties, and I made sure that I was the trapper on the springing teal stand when it was Matey's turn. So as you can imagine, marine ply targets do not break, and he missed every one of his 10 targets. Result: in fact, he hit at least 8 of them, probably 9, as could be seen when I gathered them up later in the day. The pellets were buried into the ply, but the scorer called 10 missed birds. He was forlorn, bemused, and a little angry, but unusually quiet. The prize money went to another, and the occasion was never mentioned again. By him, that is. I have a regular chuckle to myself, but also feel a tad guilty about cheating him of the prize money. However, the objective of bringing him down a peg or two worked like a dream. I did have the thought of posting him anonymously one of the said targets, but feared the consequences of the resulting inquiry. Should I have come clean?
This is unbelievable.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Honestly, the lengths that someone will go just to make someone feel really shit about themselves.
To be fair, I want to meet that guy. I mean, talk about bringing someone down to level. My opinion is never, ever let that out the bag. That is pure genius.
It's wonderful, isn't it? And don't let him forget it either. Like, every time he comes back at the end of a drive and says, "Did you see that screamer I hit?" You just remind him that he couldn't hit the simple springing teal targets last summer, so just to wind his neck in a bit.
Just like, are you sure it was you that hit that after last summer?
I can't believe he's managed to keep this quiet. I mean, because he's anonymous, obviously, and in these circumstances, he's still going to manage to keep this quiet. But what huge lengths to go to. I mean, talk about making marine ply clays. That's not easy.
But I mean,
painting them black.
What it shows you is that if you are a loudmouth or a show-off or a braggart, the shooting world will come back and bite you in the arse somehow. It really will. You won't get away with it forever. And he might never learn the lesson, but maybe he will.
How much of a dick must this guy have been?
He must have been winding people up for a few years, don't you think?
I just think that is absolutely brilliant.
The guy deserves like a lot for this. I want him at our podcast party.
Well, hopefully he'll be there, yeah.
I'm going to get him to design armour for some of our pheasants that fly over a certain gun. So, the same sort of thing. This guy, I need to get this guy on board.
I reckon most of the pheasants I shoot at are Kevlar lined. It's the only plausible explanation.
Amazing.
So he's got one simple question: should I have come clean? I think unanimously no.
No, but also unanimously
no
congratulations.
Yeah, I want to put his name up in lights, but obviously that would be ruining it. So
it's a no and a complete congratulations from me.
We'll just invite him to the pub with us three, and we'll sit there and buy him drinks all night.
Yeah.
All night. All night. No, well done.
Wonderful.
Well done.
What a hero.
So we've got more correspondence, haven't we, Chris? And it's sort of, I suppose, slightly related.
We do indeed. If you recall, in the last episode, we were asked by a listener, Matthew, to suggest fines for a new syndicate. And we asked members to write in with the fines that they hand out on their shoots. Harry has been in touch to tell us about one that's in place on the syndicate that he runs. And he writes, we introduced a new fine on the shoot I run this year, which is called the pink gun slip. It's normally awarded to someone who has done something silly in the days leading up to a shoot day or on the last shoot day. If there's no obvious winner, we award it for any minor indiscretion we can think of, normally being late or overly keen or something like that. However, the best reason it has been awarded for so far was when a very well-respected gentleman arrived at the shoot day with a well-known gun dog trainer to help this chap with his gorgeous Labrador on the peg. After completing the morning briefing and preparing to depart for the first drive, it became apparent that the gentleman in question had forgotten to put his dog in the car, and the poor thing had been left in the kitchen wondering why she was missing out. He got a fair amount of stick and was awarded the pink gun slip for the day, which he wore with pride.
That's a very good one.
I mean, I like what they're doing in the syndicate there. I mean, Richard, you must have seen a fair few fines dished out in your time.
We're massive charity supporters, and I think it's really important, that our shooting fraternity do that. So we do fine people for various things. Certainly, we release X amount of white birds per year, and I used to start finding people. If you shoot a white bird, then it's £50. And what used to happen is people would shoot the white birds, and you go up and say, "Oh, well done, you shot a white bird. That's £50 for the Team Grace or the NHS or the Air Ambulance or whatever it is." And they'd simply turn around and go, "I never shot that." And you could have guns, just one gun in a field, and a white bird strategically behind him, and "Oh no, I never shot that." So we've actually changed it now. So basically, if you shoot a white bird, you collect £50 off everybody else, and all of a sudden, yeah, I shot the white bird, and we get fines in that way. But yeah, I mean, I think fining guns, you've got to be a little bit careful, but it's a great way of a bit of fun for the day, but also raising money for great causes.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. We don't really do them at home, but I've been on a few shoots with good finds, and I do think it's fun. I meant to say, by the way, Harry actually messaged us on Instagram, and he sent us a picture of the pink gun slip, and I have to say, it is very pink. It's really, really pink. So the good thing is that Wilfred and Harry are both going to get a set of the Guns on Pegs podcast garters, which will go very nicely with the pink gun slip, it has to be said. So they're both now members of the Most Noble Order of the Garter. Richard, obviously, you're going to get your garter, so we'll look forward to seeing those out.
They will be worn with pride.
Exactly. Good news. And of course, they're also, all three of you are now on the guest list for our Game Fair party. So if you've got a shooting confession or a quandary or a query and you'd like us and our guests to help you out with it, and you'd like to become an owner of a set of the garters and come to the party, drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com. And on the subject of the party, there's a couple of things we need to mention, Chris. First of all, I've got a message from Tim Madams, who was a guest on the podcast in Series 1 and who's kindly offered to do the catering for the party. Do you want to hear it?
Far away.
Here we go. Let's see if this works.
Chris, George, Tim Madams here. had a bit of a brainwave. We've been working for a while on plans for your party at the game fair, and we had that idea of bringing the vintage fire truck down to you. And then it just sort of occurred to me that surely the best thing to do would be to bring the party up to the massive restaurant that we've got going on at the game fair, right at the end of Gunmakers Row. Gonna be a massive venue. Why don't we have it there? It'll be brilliant.
So what do you think of that idea, Chris?
He's on to something here, is Tim. This helps. We've obviously been asking guests, listeners, to help make this party a success, and essentially what Tim's done there is stepped up to the mark to help us with the running of this.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great idea. So the fire engine is it's quite fun. We've got a link with the Country Food Trust going on there. And we talked about that first off, the idea that Tim will do the catering. So when people have had a load of drinks and they're far too drunk and they want to have whatever it is that they want to eat, a bit of money goes to the Country Food Trust. So that's a really good thing. But Tim's also, he's never short of a drink or two. So I think this is good. I'm liking this. What do you reckon, George?
I think it's a great idea. I think I was slightly worried about this. We've got a decent sized stand this year, but I was worried how many people we were going to be able to get on it comfortably. I think we're talking about a guest list of 300. So if we can use his restaurant, which is obviously set up for large numbers of people, it seems absolutely perfect to me.
So the question is, has this gone and increased the capacity of the party? And I think it might have done.
Oh, possibly.
We all know, we've all seen a restaurant at the game fair. Sides come off restaurants, don't they? So you can take those little panelled sides off, and we could just fill this place as much as we like. What do you reckon?
And then the wheels fall off. The sides come off and then the wheels.
That's the plan. So, Chris, we better just do a quick rundown because we didn't talk about it properly in the last episode. Where are we with the party? What have we got? What do we still need to sort out? All that stuff.
Well, behind the scenes, I've obviously been, we've had lots of messages, and I must thank everyone that's got in touch. There's tons of people wanting to come to the party. I'll come back to that in a second, but we are making really good progress. But obviously we're looking for support. We're looking from other people out there who want to come and add some value to this party to make it a real sort of post-lockdown party, a real success pre-season. I'm so excited by it. So we got food by Tim Adams, as Tim's obviously just said. Lots of drink already organised, but we're still looking for some drinks brands who'd like to be involved. If you make some sort of provincial slow gin or something and you want to do a bit of something, we can bring you in on this. Obviously, we'll give you a big shout out in the podcast and help you there. We've got a magician. We've also got the fire engine. We've got Tom Payne on the triangle on the Tom Payne stage and a Tom Payne dance-off.
Who's competing against Tom in the Tom Payne dance-off? Is it just Tom?
The thing is, yeah, when Tom Payne does a dance-off, it is usually just Tom and no one else within quite...
Nobody within flailing distance.
I think we've all witnessed that.
So that's happening. But obviously, if anyone would like to compete with Tom Payne in the dance-off, we can very much make that a thing. So let us know. And we've also got a cannon to open the party. So it's going great guns.
Very good. I like it. See what you've done there.
I like it. But is Tom Payne actually doing a dance-off or trying to impersonate like a pigeon flapper or something? Like that? He'll kill me for saying that, but I just wonder.
Well, I don't think he knows that he's doing a dance-off yet either. So this probably be the first time he learns about it. So that's good.
You see, and someone else suggested that he play the triangle with the band, which obviously we're going to make happen.
That is pure genius.
It was Marcus Janssen who suggested that, who is obviously a mutual friend. So anyone else that knows Tom, just message in, let us know what you wanted to do, and we'll obviously let him know on the night what he has to do. So we're going to have to go on Amazon and buy ourselves a triangle. It's all right. Like we used to play at school.
I will happily buy that.
I've got one. My twins have. My kids have got one.
I did not expect any of us to have a triangle. Good. So if you'd like to come to the party, you are welcome because you're listening to this. You've just got to earn your wristband, which gets you entrance into the party. We've given out loads in the last couple of weeks to people that have sent in nice messages and interesting thoughts that we simply just don't have time to read out. But thank you to everyone that's been in touch. So we've got space, as we said, for probably about 300, but I'm going to do some investigation and see if we can get this number increased. I imagine security is the people I'm going to end up speaking to. But keep your messages coming. Basically, I think the key to it is if you send us an email and it makes George laugh, you're guaranteed to get on the list. So it's a little bit of a word of advice. But looking forward to it very much.
Indeed. So the other thing that we've got to just mention quickly is we've still got the auction for the 4 sets of garters and the 2 pairs of tickets to the party. We've had a couple of bids come in, but you've still got time to put in your sealed bid. Remember that the proceeds will go to the shooting cause of your choice. So just send your bid to pod@gunsonpegs.com and you could be in with a chance for those as well.
Awesome. Good. Right. Tricky Dicky, some questions for you, my friend.
Okay, make them easy.
Promising nothing. I'm going to start with an easy one, though. Or at least hopefully it's easy. So we had Gerwin Jones on the previous series, and he basically spent an hour talking about how much he loves Brigands. So now we're kind of getting to find out about the shoot from the other side of the line, so to speak. So my first question is, what makes Brigands so special? Why do people love it so much?
I think Brigands is definitely a very special place. You know, you're right in the middle of Snowdonia National Park. The scenery's stunning. The hills or mountains, if you like, are huge, and makes you feel very small. It can produce on its day some of the challenging targets. As Chris will know, certain drives off the tops, Tommy's, Heaven's Water, Well Shaven, Waterfall, those sort of drives. On the right day, they're very, very high. They're twisting, they're curling, they're dropping. They are doing everything. And I think what makes people come back is the fact that they are shootable, but they're doing everything. It's not just the sort of straight-driven bird where you can just drop in front of it, and once you found the lead, you pull the trigger and they curl up. Now, this ones, they might be going sideways, they're dropping, they're all sorts. They're a very, very difficult bird. Gerwin, what a great guy. I mean, he comes back to the Brigands year on year. He's a very good friend of mine. He's a gentleman of the sport, but he can also bloody shoot. But he doesn't mind missing, and that's the trick. If you're going shooting, which a lot of people do, and you want to get a ratio, and you want to come off the drive saying I've shot 25 shells, I've killed 18 pheasants, and I'm afraid Brigands isn't for you. It's a special place. It's got, what does it shoot, 60 or 70 days a year, and for the last few years it is been booked up year on year. Now, I'm not saying we're the best in the country, but we try to. Pheasants aren't easy to drive at the Brigands. It's not going from top to top, from cover crop to cover crop. It takes a lot of work from certainly the guys behind the scenes to make sure that the pheasants go where we want them to, and often they don't. Let's face it, it often goes wrong. But no, it's a very special place. I'm certainly not going to stay here and say it's the best in the country, because shooting means an awful lot to a lot of people, and different aspects of the day for different people make the shoot the best in the country. Do you know what I mean, Chris?
Yeah, so you reminded me standing at the Brigands there when you talked about the pheasants dropping. And I think that's such an important point. When you think of like some really high bird shoots, obviously you've got like flushing points that are ridiculously, they're just such a long way up and a long way back. But obviously if the birds went straight from there, they'd be 3 times out of range. So they are coming down, they're following the contours somewhat. But the speed, therefore, that when they go over the guns is just ridiculous. And I've stood on a peg there, and I'm not proud of it. I mean, we'll come on to some of this stuff in a second, but
you shouldn't, Chris.
I remember, I think I shot 95 cartridges and I shot 5 birds or something. Which, but you see, I'm prepared to admit it. I reckon that most days someone does that. It's just they don't say it.
Absolutely. Oh dear. Talking of Tommies, I remember years ago you shot Tommies, I think, Chris, a few years ago. And one of our mutual friends, Will Morton, came on a little day that I had up there one day. And he is the most enthusiastic shot, as we both know, and countryman, may I add. Yeah. And he was on peg 1 at Tommy's, which is the most notoriously difficult peg. It's the bottom of the valley, and the pheasants are at their highest. And he had a few shots. I think he had 44, 45 shots. And I walked up to him. I was like, "Will, how do you get on?" And he's got a smile from ear to ear. And I was like, "Oh, brilliant. He's had a good time. I was like, how do you get on, mate? He's like, I had 45 shots there. It was epic. I was like, how many did you get? He's like, oh, I didn't shoot one. But, this is what it's all about. He loved it,
It's so that's how you've got to react, because I think this is when you're shooting high pheasants, people you can expect, people can go in with an expectation that they'll connect and bring down quite a few, like you would on your syndicate at home type thing. But that's just not the case. And Will's attitude there is spot on, isn't it? Like if you can't enjoy that, then you're just not really going to enjoy the day.
Well, I suppose that kind of brings me on to one of the questions that I wanted to ask. So, Richard, you've not seen me shoot, for which I'm grateful. On my good days, I am at best an average shot, and on my bad days, it's frankly embarrassing. So, would Brigands be wasted on me? Do you need to have a certain level of skill to come to Brigands and not just have fun, but to actually sort of be ethical as well?
That's it. That's a great question, and we spend a lot of time with the guns the night before shooting, where we'll go and have drinks while they're just before they sit for supper, and we'll talk it through with them. At the end of the day, a day's pheasant shooting is a lot of money, and whether you're shooting Brigands or any other estate, I think it's important that the host goes, spend some times with those guests, and actually ask, what are you after out of your day? You do get Gerwin who Gerwin wants the highest drives, and that's what he gets. But Gerwin can deal with them, and loves to get the lead off, and consistently will kill serious pheasants. However, we get people from all over, and the Brigands, yes, you hear about the 4 big drives, but there's a lot of other drives that are very, very good drives, and we've got something for everyone. You don't hear about the Oaks and Gwynion, which I'll touch on later so much. They're brilliant drives. There's something there for everyone. There's something there from 30 yards to 80 yards.
That's so true. The Oaks is just one of those drives where if you put that on any other shoot, people will be raving about it.
Oh, I love the Oaks.
And just because it's at the Brigands, it's still a very good drive. It's an incredible drive, but it's not maybe known as some of the others you mentioned.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been hosting many a day, as you know, and you'll come off the Oaks and you thought, oh, that was good today. And people are like, yeah, it's not Tommy's though, is it? I'm like, no, it's not Tommy's, but it is still a brilliant pheasant drive. It's just, yeah. But going back to your question, sorry, George, there is something for everyone. And I think you've got to take time to get to know your guests and to get to know what they're after, because, I don't want to put someone through 4 extreme drives, and actually what they're after is to have a bit of fun, enjoy the hospitality, and shoot a few pheasants. And it's important that, it's horses for courses as far as I'm concerned, and we've got to cater for every different race or horse in the race, if you like.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So if you don't mind, I'm going to put my journalist hat on. I do it once an episode.
Warning, journalism ahead. Warning, journalism ahead.
George has got a jingle board and he's super excited.
Okay, so how high is too high? Lots of people will talk about lots of prick birds, that kind of thing. A lot of people, we put out an article recently. I put out an article recently with a list of 10 high bird shoots, and nearly all of the comments were about how these people commenting saw it as potentially unethical shooting at these sort of extreme ranges. What would you say to those people?
I can definitely see that point. Shooting is getting, the whole trend of shooting has changed. 20 years ago, a good Cotswold shoot was as high a bird as you'll see anywhere. How high is too high? I mean, for some guns, any pheasant's too high.
Like me.
But you have to work within your capabilities. And there are pheasants on any shoot that just, for whatever reason, take off out the cover and they go extreme. They go out of shot. Whether it's the Brigands, whether it's any shoot. Now, if they're really, really high, do you shoot at them? Probably not, but some do. I think you've got to definitely be, just shoot what you think you can kill. The other thing is, which I think is very important, is the shoot have to have the ability and the resources to pick wounded birds, because whether you're shooting skyscrapers or 30, 25-yard pheasants, there is always going to be an element, sadly, of wounded birds. Now, the quicker they can be picked and dispatched and put into the game trays, the better as far as I'm concerned. Now, these birds that are hit when they're, 50, 60, 70 yards high, as far as I'm concerned, as long as you've got your pickers up far enough back, when they hit the ground, they will never fly again and they will be picked. And that is, for me, I couldn't do my job if we weren't picking pheasants. As simple as that. That's where the money is, because, we get paid per bird when they're in the tray. So it's in our interest to pick them. But there are birds, stratospheric. But I will say that if you get a pellet into a pheasant, he might or her might set the wings and they'll fly for 100 yards. Put the pickers 200 yards, 300 yards back. As soon as they hit the deck, they will never fly again. And we need to make sure that we have the resources in place that every bird that sadly is pricked, and it's not that many of them, but there's always some, are picked and dispatched.
So on your really tall drives, how far back are the pickers up?
So we normally have 2 waves of pickers. My argument as a shoot host is I don't want the pickers too close, because a lot of the guns bring dogs and they want to use their dogs, and birds that are killed outright will be dead. They're not going to go anywhere. So the guns can have their fun with their dogs picking them up. Where I want my pickers is, on some drives they'll be a mile back.
A mile?
Bring the ditches up. They've all got 4, 5, 6 dogs apiece. Work it all the way back and they will pick 99% of them.
Wow.
I don't want to see pickers 10 yards behind the gun line with dogs running in, because the ones that are on the field and are killed outright, they're going to be there for when they've walked in from a mile, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm really glad you've talked about this, because I think that this is such a key point that never gets spoken about with regards to high bird shooting. The fact that we all go shooting, of course, we've all pricked pheasants. Like, it's not something there's nothing worse than pricking birds on a drive. I'd rather miss and miss and miss and miss than occasionally muddle one down. It's just horrible. But it is the nature of what we do, and we won't go into any of that. But the fact is that there are shoots out there where there are birds being pricked regularly, because they're just good. They're good shoots, good high birds, but not extreme or anything. But they're not set up necessarily like you're set up, with 2 banks of pickers up and pickers up a mile back and all the rest of it. And I think that that's such a key point, because even though, you might not be killing things instantly, as long as they're being collected and put in the trays, as you say, then it's what's the difference, really? And
actually, the money spent on extra pickers, Chris, is money well spent. Because they've only got to pick 1.5 or 2 pheasants the whole day, and that's paid.
Yeah.
And actually forget about, the money that you get for picking. We have a sport that I know all 3 of us are passionate about. Yes, okay, we make our livelihoods from it, but I'm passionate about this. I've shot from a very, very young age, and I've, put my whole life into it. I want it to stay around. We don't need to be giving any opportunity for not doing our jobs properly, should we say, for us not to let it go on for your kids and their kids.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I must ask a question. It's putting you on the spot a little bit here, but we're obviously transitioning shot-wise. I mean, and we're not, we're quite early stages of this. How do you see that affecting the shoot?
I think that, I'm not one that's going to say I don't want it to happen, because if that's the way it's got to go for our sport to continue, then we need to go with it. And as far as I'm concerned, going back to Gerwin, I stood behind him on the Oaks, funnily enough, peg 8, some proper grown-up birds coming over him, and he said, I'm going to shoot some steel now, and he wrapped up some birds that were as good, couldn't tell he wasn't shooting it, which was good. I was really impressed with that. Now, forget about that. If, for instance, steel doesn't do what lead can, then we need to alter our sport, because there's not much of an alternative. The way I see it, if we start saying, it's got to be lead, it's just another bullet in the gun for our industry, or our passion, if you like, to be closed. So if that's what it's got to be, that's what it's got to be. And we've got to cater for that. is my view.
So what does that look like in your case? Does that mean bringing flushing points further down the hill, or bringing the guns up the hill?
I think we're going to need bigger grams and lesser shot size to bring that impact up. And I think it's going to be, we'll see how it goes. I mean, we always flush birds. We have 4 lines, one from the bottom, one from either side, and one from the top. Certainly for that reason, you do get stronger teams or weaker teams, and we will dictate where we flush the birds from to suit that particular team. Now, if steel's not doing the job, then we're going to have to do something, because for 2 reasons. If the birds don't get shot, our commercial business, if you like, is not viable. And plus, the second reason, if birds are getting pricked to the point that they, just very lightly touched, ethically it's not right, and morally it's not right. So, we're going to have to suck it and see. It's going to be a challenge maybe, but you know what? It might not be. These eco wads and bits and pieces, you might find that, there's no need to change. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be interesting. I don't want to spend forever on this sort of stuff, because I think the actual shooting aspect, the actual pulling the trigger, is only a small part of the day. And
I completely agree. We
can get caught up on the sort of how did you shoot point. And George will know from me, I couldn't give 2 hoots at the end of the day. Like, I'll shoot as well as I can, but it's not why I go. I go to spend time and have a laugh and just talk. And I think that if we get hung up on going to the Brigands and just there with your, fixing in your various different chokes and trying this, that, and the other, and then not partaking in conversation between the drives, quite frankly, you've got it coming anyway. That's the sort of stuff.
Chris,
that
if you and I needed to be good shots to carry on shooting, we'd have given up years ago.
I'd be at the back with the dog.
It'd be you, Morton, and I, 100%. George, I haven't seen you shoot, so I can't comment, but I dare say you'd be the 4th in our club.
Almost, yeah, the founding member, I think, probably.
I mean, you're so right there, Chris. Going back to what do people enjoy on a day shooting? You ask someone like Gerwin Jones to somebody completely different. What they enjoy on a day is, completely different. Hospitality is a huge factor, especially if guns are bringing their wives. The wives are there. They need some enjoyment, good champagne, nice canapes in between drives, bits and pieces like that. Good company. What's a day shooting without good company?
Yeah.
I'd rather shoot an average farm shoot with some seriously good company than the best shoot in the country, whatever that might be. Scenery. To stand, one thing the Brigands has got is scenery. You stand at Tommy's, you look down through that sort of central valley. It's breathtaking, and to have a glass of champagne and something there to drink and nibble on is brilliant. But there's so many different aspects, I suppose, to a day's shooting or a shooting trip that different people enjoy different parts of.
So while you're talking about this, I think there's a question here which I've got to ask you, because and I want to hear your take on it, because I get very outspoken about this, but we see comments from people who simply cannot understand, and with some quite colourful language, why people would want to spend £50+ on a bird per bird on a day shooting. And when we put stuff on like Facebook, for example, like profiling different shoots, there's just almost like downright abuse almost at us for even mentioning it. Firstly, what do you charge at the Brigands? And can you explain to someone who might ask this question how it differs from the sort of £30 per bird at their local shoot? And the key differences to sort of justify.
He's got his paperwork out. We're going to get a proper answer.
Yeah. No comment. My father-in-law will kill me for this, but you've met my father-in-law, and he just thinks everything about what I do in commercial pheasant shooting is just ridiculous. But anyway, we'll go from here. As I touched on earlier, as I'm sure all of us, I started shooting at 8 or 9 years old. And in the school holidays, I'd walk miles just to shoot a pigeon or shoot a rabbit. And if I ever got that phone call, which wasn't very often, maybe once or twice a year, if some gunner dropped out down the local shoot, would you like to come on our farm shoot? I was like, 25 to 30 birds over 8 guns. I thought all of my Christmases had come at once. So I understand 100% the other end of the spectrum, if you like. when I moved to Wales, 14 years ago, I'd never seen anything like this. And now, running the Brigands or hosting the Brigands together with a lot of work, Will Evans is hugely involved. But anyway, going back to it, what's the difference between a 25-pound farm shoot bird, if you like, and 50-pound bird? As far as I'm concerned, they're two different sports, Chris, I think. Now, I might be wrong here, but I think they are. 25-pound a bird. If you're putting it into monetary terms, a farm shoot that I'd shoot on would be a 3-to-1 shoot, for instance.
Yeah.
I would say. And it's £25 a bird. It's very affordable shooting. But if you actually did that per shot, you're talking at what? 3-to-1 is £8.30 a bird, a shot.
Oh, right.
That's what's costing it, okay?
Yeah.
£50 a bird at the Brigands for 8-to-1 to have hopefully some of the best food and some of the best wine or whatever it is £6.25 a shot. So when you put it into, it depends whether you want to shoot the birds or have the shots. Actually, Brigands is cheaper than a farm shoot. Is that good? Is that good?
It's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
Have I quietened Chris Horn?
We're both sitting here desperately trying to do the maths in our head, and it's definitely not my strong point.
I did it earlier.
I did an article on that about 5 years ago, literally talking about bang for your buck. If pulling the trigger is what you're going for. And so I was aware of that sort of thinking, but I really intrigued to hear you put your numbers on it. George, I want to hear your take on that.
Well, I think it seems to me that what we've said all the way through this and in so many podcasts before is that the pulling of the trigger, the size of the bag, all the rest of it is actually incidental, or not the most important factor. And somewhere like Brigands or any of the better shoots, really, there's as much emphasis on the hospitality, the great food, great drink, great wine, great champagne, evidently, as we've learned today. And so what you're comparing is I don't know, let's use hotels as an example. You're comparing the Ritz, which is the height of luxury, hot and cold running waiters and every possible whim looked after, and a self-catering Airbnb by the beach. And they're two totally different things. They both have their place. They're both really enjoyable, but they're just different things, and it depends what you're looking for. And a lot of what you're paying for isn't the shooting, it's the add-ons, but that aren't add-ons.
It's a cracking analogy, because if we got a load of mates together, us lot, and went to stay in that Airbnb by the sea, we'd have a hell of a laugh. But we'd also have a hell of a laugh if we all got our mates and went to the Ritz for a weekend. It's
absolutely. That's my point. That's exactly right.
It's not that one is more fun than the other. They're just different. And it's like saying, why does anyone ever go in business class in a plane? Just because once in a blue moon, if you can afford it, it's a luxury and you sort of treat yourself, don't you?
Yeah, or if you've got money coming out of every orifice, then you're used to.
Then of course you're going to go economy. No, but actually, like you say, one of my best days shooting I've ever had was at Hill Farm back in Warwickshire. You probably know that.
Yeah.
And the company was amazing. I think we shot 75 or something, and it was a bloody good day. And the company was amazing, and got round your mates at night, and it was brilliant. But as I say, the farm shoots and the commercial, the bigger shoots, they are different entities, I think.
I don't think you'll ever be answered, but this is why shooting is so much fun.
And I suppose the other point is, right, there's plenty of £30 a bird shooting out there. It's not like there's a shortage of it. There's loads of opportunities out there. We know this. Everybody knows this. If you don't want to spend £50 a bird, just don't.
Then
just don't. You don't have to. No one's twisting your arm. It's entirely up to you where you decide to go and book to shoot. And you shouldn't. I find it really annoys me when people judge other people for the choices that they make, how they decide to spend their money. It's up to the individual how they get their rocks off.
Absolutely, I agree.
Pause. Right, Tricky, go for a wee.
Legend.
I'm going to get another drink then.
Well, yeah, that's a great shout.
There will now be a short intermission.
So obviously you've got these, you've got people out on these luxurious days, everyone having a right laugh, like £30 a bird, £50 a bird, who cares? It's all about the funny stories. You've hosted tons of days. You must have seriously itchy legs as well, the amount of shooting socks you have to wear. Well, tell me about some of the funny stories. Go on, you must have something that springs to mind.
There are undoubtedly an awful lot of funny stories out there, undoubtedly. The amount that I can actually tell on a podcast gets dwindled down from about 600 or 700 to just a couple, but
you could do what George does and just like change everyone's names for random other letters in the alphabet.
So I'll tell you a funny one. So we're hosting a day. I think it's about a Thursday through the week, and we've had a pretty busy week. We've shot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Emails are stacking up in the office, and the phone's going in between drives and stuff. And anyway, I'm pulling out of a drive called Tegwins, and it's the furthest east we go at the Brigands. And I'm on the phone and thinking about something else. I'm just going to the last drive. And for whatever reason, I turned right rather than left. So I've got 8 guns behind me and 8 loaders. Anyway, I'm on the phone and off I go. And we're cruising probably a mile or two to the east of Brigands. And the 11's girl in there at the time was like knocking me. I'm on the phone, I'm like, yeah, sorry, what? She's like, where are you going? And I looked, I was like, oh my God. I was driving home. So I just completely forgotten that I'd got the guns around. So then I'm like, in a sheer panic of how I'm going to turn a convoy of probably near on 15 vehicles around and try and make it look like it wasn't a mistake. To which I couldn't. So turned around and I turned in this, like, you know, when you're panicking, you turn around in like this really tight drive that's hard enough to turn one car around. So everyone's shunting, cars beeping at the traffic, and I'm shunting them around. I'm just like, oh my God. Anyway, that was one. Another one, this is a great story actually. We had a Canadian group who came over, really nice guys. They shot for a week and they absolutely loved it. So at the end of the week, one of the guests who let's call him David, turned around and said, when I get home, I'm going to bring my wife here. And I was like, fantastic, we'd love to have you back. We've got some individual days, come and join us. Anyway, 2 weeks later, David, if you like, and his wife came back, and he shot for 2 days back to back. I said, it's so good to have you back. You know, how do the two trips how were they different? He's like, oh, Richard, they were very different. I was like, okay, so what's the difference? He's like, when you bring your wife, it's double the money and half the fun. I was like, wowzers. Okay, we'll probably...
Was his wife within earshot at that moment in time?
No, obviously not, and luckily his name is David, by the way. So another last one before I bore you with funny stories is a good friend of mine who's also a good friend of Gerwin's, Rob Hunt, is shooting here, and he shoots here quite a lot, and he's a good shot. And we'd just started this drive called Devil's Chair, and I mean, it surprised us all. They came off the top, and I was like, oh my God, you know, these are ridiculous. Anyway, Rob's bang, 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 bang. I was like, oh, Rob, crying out loud, will you just hit one? Just trying to be a bit funny. He's like, well, you do it. I was like, oh God. I was like, no, you get on with it. He's like, no, you do it. And he gave me the gun, and I'm a pretty average shot, you know that, Chris. And for whatever reason, this absolute stonking hen came over, and first barrel absolutely chinned it straight underneath the beak. And I handed him the gun back. I was like, it's pretty simple, Rob. He's like, do it again. I was like, no, I've showed you once. I'm not doing it. The most unluckiest pheasant out of one of the 7 million we've bred. That was the most unluckiest pheasant, but very satisfying. Yeah, very
wonderful. It reminds me of standing at Whitfield on Beaters Day, and Stuart Ward invited us up there, and I'm standing on. He had like banks of guns because every man and his dog was out on the Beaters Day, and he invited us on it, and I was standing on this drive on a rock in the middle of a river, and it was almost like a V. So I was like the furthest point towards the sort of front of the drive, as it were, and a couple of early birds start making their way. Like you can see there's movement. One bird comes out, an absolute, I mean, it was right up there. but it was within range, and I knew this, and I was like, oh god, and it was flying straight over me. I pulled the gun up and did exactly what you just did. Down it comes, and I was like, look calm. Do not look around at everyone.
Look like it happens every day.
do not start cheering. Don't do anything else. Just be cool. And then so I shoot this bird, and I was just play it really cool. I missed the next 40.
Well, I was going to say the smooth thing to do at that point is to take the other cartridge out, close the gun, put it back in the gun slip, turn around and watch everybody else.
Completely agreed. I must tell you one more story actually, which I have to tell you. In my early days, when I was first sort of commissioned to go and run a few days at the Brigands, and very exciting. It was really, really big punters, and first season in the seat. And Will Evans was the head keeper then, so very young team and sort of early days of the new Brigands, if you like. We were on this day, and we were going from number drive 4 out of the 5. And we got a bit of a miscommunication of which drive we were doing 4th and which drive we were doing 5th. And it turned out I was going to the 5th drive, which was actually the 4th drive, if you know what I mean. So we're cruising up the side of this mountain. I don't see many pickers or anything, and I'm sort of like, this doesn't look quite right. So Will Evans gets on the radio. He's like, Rich, massive problem. I'm like, go on. He's like, you're the wrong side of the valley. We're over here. There's no way we can change. You need to come to us. I'm like, I can't turn the guns around. He's like, no, there's this old track that I'll take you down. It's a little bit overgrown, but the guns will get down there fine. I'm like, Will, are you sure that this is yeah, no, it's fine. So we turn left. We turn right off the main road up towards this drive, where we should have just stayed on the main road. Turn left, go down this little, not even a track, Chris, I'm not going to lie, it's like a footpath. And it's like something out of Ace Ventura. Going down through this vegetation, through a ford, up round, it's bumpy, it's terrible. And finally arrive back on the road 100 metres down the road from where we turned off. So, this is a main A road, why would you do that? So when we got out the other end, I'm thinking, right, what on earth am I going to say here? And they say, Richard, why on earth did we go sort of right? I was like, it's terrible. They were just doing a little bit of roadworks on that 50 yards around the blind bend. It's like, they're so inconsiderate, aren't they? I was like, yeah, terrible. And on we went. And no one was to ever know the why.
That's a very good save. Very good save.
But as you're going down this track and the vegetation's getting thicker and you don't know where you're going, and you're just relying on someone that's been in there in a mule 20 years ago or something. Like, what is coming around this corner? But anyway, we got away with it, so it's funny.
So I've got a question. We talked a lot about Brigands and an amazing shoot it is, but I know you've been to other places. Tell us about some of the other favourite shoots. And obviously you're employed by Betisol, and Betisol have some mega shoots in the portfolio. But take me to other parts of the country where things are totally different, scenery's different. Yeah. What do you think sort of compares?
I've been lucky enough that I have shot quite a few nice places in this country. I mean, I've shot Water Priory. I think personally that is a lovely shoot. It's a brilliant shoot, completely different end of the spectrum again, but it's a very nice shoot in Yorkshire, as you know. It's very pristine, lots of birds, and they fly pretty evenly over everyone, which is a nice shoot. I'll tell you where I did shoot last season, actually funnily enough in the same team as Gerwin, was Pantilly down in Cornwall, which was, I have to say, it was very, very well run, and thoroughly enjoyed the day. But there's lots of little shoots. I used to love, I can say Molland now because obviously it's not a better shoot, but Molland is a lovely shoot. There's a lot of lovely shoots. I love going into Scotland. For me, as you'll hear later in a story, but I love Scotland. Going back up in there, maybe Drumlanrig. The Scottish they renown their tradition. Not that we don't, but to go up there. I've been to Scotland to visit keepers in the summer, and they're in +4s. To go to Scotland, I love Scotland. That's where it all started, really. I think, isn't it?
Okay, so Brigands is obviously an awesome shoot within the Betisol portfolio. Is it your favourite one of them?
I think Brigands, for me, because I run it or I've hosted it for a long time, It's my favourite because it's the most challenging in this fact to try and get the birds from mountain drives over the guns. And it challenges you every day. And flush points change by 100 yards a day. And everything changes every day. You know, Jamie and Craig, the keepers up there, you know, they effortlessly put a day on, day in, day out. And everything changes. You know, you can't blank in at the Brigands. You can't say, well, blank that drive into that drive into that drive. What's there's there. And that's it. You know, it's a very rugged, very harsh environment to keeper. And it's when it goes well, there's nothing better. But, you know, it often goes wrong. It does. But, you know, and we're super critical. You know, when you spend 60, 70, 80 days on a shoot, you know, what we think might have not have been an A1 drive, a lot of the guns love it because you're so super critical. You've seen it at its best.
Yeah.
If it's 95%, for me, that's not good enough, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, the reason I sort of asked that is that you've got quite a variance of shoots, and I thought you might mention Vayner in there.
Vayner, you know, that's me hosting. You know, if I wanted, I've been lucky enough to shoot Vayner on a couple of occasions, actually courtesy of Gwyn, and you know what? That is a phenomenal shoot. A phenomenal shoot. It's a completely different beast again. It's beautiful though.
I think it's my favourite of your shoots. I think the Parkland style nature of it, it's very, very different to Brigands, isn't it, in scenery? And obviously the birds aren't quite as extreme, which suits me down to the ground. But you get some awesome birds there, and I just think I don't know, scenery. I think it's lovely.
Plastinum. I hosted a bid in September at Plastinum last year, and you know what? That is a phenomenal shoot. It really is.
Yeah. Right. Well, look, we're leading right into it, George.
Yeah.
Final section.
Yeah. So, Richard, we did warn you about this, but the way we like to finish the podcast every time is to ask our guests to describe their desert island shooting. So the idea is it's your last day ever. Money's no object. Logistics we'll sort out. The sky's the limit. So where are you going?
Before you speak, Richard
No,
has.
I know what you're going to say here.
He's got the best imagination. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes out with.
Okay, so where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you taking with you? Go for it.
I rewrote this. I'm just going to tell you how I rewrote it. I was going to just put an action-packed day in where we were going to use helicopters like they were quad bikes and start everywhere and shoot every species that ever had been. Anyway, I simplified it. Okay, so
this is a grown-up version of you, isn't it? Coming out now.
I think you're going to enjoy this, Chris. Okay,
go.
And you do feature in this.
All right. Okay. Oh dear.
So it's going to be a team, and I can't. It would take me longer than a day to put the team together because we're going to shoot quite a few guns. But it's going to be a team full of family and close friends. Let's put it like that. I'm gonna hard Balmoral Castle, okay, which is going to be
I like
the
it already.
perfect venue for a relaxed evening the night before. And I know that Her Majesty the Queen is very keen at picking up, and we'd love to have her on the day as well for some of it. So we'll be up at first light, and we'll be straight on the river, and we'll have caught a salmon by 6 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. Ambitious.
And then we're straight up the hill then, and straight onto the Red Stags, and we're back for breakfast at 9 a.m. Okay, so we've really pushed on. Breakfast is 9 o'clock till 9:30 a.m. prompt. Helicopters leave at 9:31 a.m. prompt. Okay. We then cruise into Invercord for a driven grouse day.
Yeah.
Which is a double gun day. It's got a strong wind. Nothing massive, somewhere in the region of 300 to 400 brace. Which that would complete our McNab.
It certainly would.
In a big way.
Chris, you would be loading for me, Chris. Okay.
I knew that was going to be my role in this.
We didn't want to rush the day through, so we're going to return at 4 p.m. For what's known in Scotland as you won a nip with the keepers and guests celebrating all of our McNabs. Before 5 p.m. we're collected from the castle,
Yeah.
And then we're off to the most prolific flight pond in the UK, wherever this may be.
Yeah,
You've
you've built it.
We're going to shoot teal, widgeon. We're going to shoot all of it. All of it wild, nothing weird, everything wild. And we're going to return to the castle at 7 p.m, where we'll all get scrubbed up, black tie ball in the grand hall, including beaters and everyone. This part of the day, Chris, you are allowed to relax, and you're one of my guests.
I'm not waiting on you hand and foot at this point.
And then we'll have a huge party after you've done the champagne reception, Chris.
After I've handed out all the drinks. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well done. You've thought about it.
Do you know what I think? It's obviously, it would be incredible. The best thing about that was all the beaters are invited. I love that. I think that's brilliant.
Well, it's going to be a chaotic party, isn't it? Because you've got a lot of people in the Grand Hall at Barrymore. Is it even called the Grand Hall? Do we know this?
I mean, when I was there last time, that's what they called it. But do you know, actually, funnily, before we go, a person who will listen to this, and they'll know I'm speaking about them, but I'm not going to say a name. I said, "Have you ever done a McNab?" He said, "Yeah, of course I have, yeah." I said, "Well, how did that work?" He said, "Well, I caught a salmon before breakfast. I went and shot 50 brace of grouse to my own gun, got home and thought it'd be rude not to go and shoot a deer." Now that is a McNab.
That is a McNab.
Obnoxious McNab.
Obnoxious McNab. Yeah. At least it wasn't a royal McNab.
We've talked about those before,
indeed.
and we nearly got in trouble, so we don't think we'll go into detail.
Yeah.
Richard, it's been so much fun having you on. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. It's not only been very funny, but also really interesting, and I hope that everybody listening's enjoyed it as well.
Listen, guys, it's been a complete honour, and thank you very much indeed for inviting me to talk on your show, which I have to say I do love listening to, apart from probably this one.
Hey, you're a good man. Cheers, Tricky. It's been awesome having you. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much.
Right, so before we go, as usual, there's a final reminder that you can get your hands on a pair of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters and secure your invitation to the party at the Game Fair by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or by getting in touch to let us know where you've been listening from, or by suggesting some more good finds for syndicates, or by telling us how you might be able to contribute to the party. We need a band. We want to hear from you if you're a band. Just send us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we read it out in the next episode, or if we like what you've sent us, we'll send you some garters and your invitation to the party. Finally, from me, a huge thanks to anyone who dropped a review or a rating after the last episode. It really does help us out, and it helps us to reach more people too. If you haven't done so yet, and if you've enjoyed the podcast, do please go and leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, or even just hit the subscribe button. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. And until then, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.
Good work.